a swarm of the undead. Once they reach their destination, the abandoned hospital, the team quickly gains entry to the pharmacy to secure the much-needed antibiotics. After gathering the supplies, they head back to their vehicle. Unbeknownst to her, Zoe decides to stop by the adjoining research room, a place where she once spent countless hours on her studies. Without realizing it, a zombie watches her from behind the door and then reveals itself to her. Terrified, Zoe flees and inadvertently leaves behind a personal article of clothing. Almost immediately, the zombie detects the lingering scent of the item and begins to track it relentlessly, as if compelled to follow Zoe wherever she goes. The soldiers, realizing that Zoe is missing, start searching for her. In the confusion, one of the zombies manages to bite a man named Frank, forcing the team to leave him behind due to his rapid infection. Eventually, the survivors retreat back into the bunker. The zombie that had followed Zoe cleverly clings to the underside of the vehicle, and once inside the bunker, hides within an air duct. Zoe, having secured the correct antibiotics, administers the medicine to Lily, who is waiting anxiously. Though Lily's condition soon begins to improve, the persistent zombie continues to track the scent of the lost clothing. When the zombie sees Zoe and Baka kissing, it appears visibly agitated, almost as if it is jealous. Zoe then returns to Lily and is overjoyed to see that she has recovered. Meanwhile, a zombie that notices young Lily and Zoe, who appear to be close together, begins to follow Zoe through the facility's ventilation ducts. Soon, Zoe is confronted by a reanimated creature blocking her path. In a moment of panic, she runs and presses the emergency button, triggering an alarm throughout the entire bunker. Trapped in a dead-end corridor, Zoe sees that the zombie bears a carving of her name on its arm, a chilling mark that painfully reminds her of Max, the man who once had an obsessive interest in her. As Zombie Max moves closer to Zoe, the team arrives and immediately opens fire on him. Just as they are about to end Max's life, Zoe steps in and blocks their attack. She insists that Max must not be killed, explaining that he represents the breakthrough she has been searching for. His blood could hold the key to saving the entire world. Reluctantly, the team follows Zoe's orders and restrains Max using special chains. Seizing the opportunity to test if he still retains any semblance of rationality, Zoe carefully extends her arm near him. Remarkably, Max does not attack. In the aftermath of this tense encounter, Zoe devotes herself to finding a vaccine to neutralize the outbreak. With great care, and despite his unsettling fixation on her, she collects a blood sample from Max, hoping his extraordinary immunity will be the key to saving humanity. Shortly afterward, Baka enters the research room. Zoe explains that to validate her potential vaccine, she requires additional blood samples from other infected subjects. Though Baka initially resists, recalling the heavy toll their previous missions have taken, he eventually concedes and helps formulate a plan to retrieve the necessary specimens via the facility's perimeter gate. At that moment, Zoe is assisted by several team members as they begin gathering blood samples from a controlled number of zombies. As the gate is opened, one by one, the undead surge into the bunker. The guards struggle to contain the breach, and amid the chaos, many soldiers are quickly overrun and infected. Unaware of the full extent of the disaster, Miguel, the bunker's leader, enters the research room and is stunned to discover that Max now bears a fresh carving, Zoe's name, etched on his arm. Misinterpreting this mark as a sign of a personal connection, Miguel mistakenly assumes that Max is somehow Zoe's lover, prompting Zoe to desperately restrain him to prevent further violence. Moments later, one of Miguel's subordinates alerts him to a horde of zombies flooding the bunker. Enraged by the mounting chaos, Miguel reacts swiftly. During the turmoil, one infected woman is found with a bite on her arm, and without hesitation, Miguel eliminates her to contain the threat. In response to what he perceives as the dangerous consequences of Zoe's plan, Miguel decrees that Max must be executed within the next 12 hours, no matter what transpires. Baka, however, challenges his brother's decision, insisting that Miguel should recognize that the marked Max is the same man who once harbored an unhealthy obsession with Zoe. Despite Baka's protest, Miguel remains resolute. Later, Baka finds Zoe in her quarters and demands the truth about Max. With a heavy heart, Zoe confesses that in the past, Max's behavior had been disturbingly predatory, an experience that continues to haunt her. The scene shifts back to the research area, where Zoe is joined by two colleagues who bring her a cup of coffee. Meanwhile, a woman named Lucy approaches Max and taunts him. However, as she gets too close, Max suddenly shoves her against the wall. Al, another soldier, attempts to intervene and free Lucy from Max's grasp. In the chaos, Max stealthily grabs a key that had been hanging from Al's belt. While Zoe remains focused on finalizing the vaccine, Max, having secretly freed himself, launches a sudden attack on her. Reacting quickly, Zoe defends herself by throwing a corrosive chemical at Max, forcing him to recoil. She then dashes out of the room and finds Baca, urgently informing him that Max has escaped. As they return to the research lab to search for Max, an emergency alarm suddenly blares, summoning everyone to assemble. Amid the ensuing chaos, they see Lily running frantically, chased by her infected mother. Without warning, Max appears, brutally killing Lily's mother before abducting Lily and dragging her away. Determined to rescue Lily, Zoe confronts Max, pleading with him to let the child go and take her instead if he truly came for her. After a tense exchange, Max releases Lily and takes Zoe, opening the bunker's gate as he attempts to lead her outside. At that moment, Miguel, Baca, and the remaining soldiers arrive, opening fire on Max while fending off the advancing zombies. In the confusion, Zoe breaks free from Max's grip and runs after Lily, who is fleeing toward the outside. Meanwhile, the swarm of zombies, now fully inside the bunker due to Max's actions, spreads uncontrollably. Miguel scrambles to shut the gate, but a heated argument arises when Baca insists that Zoe is still outside. Their distraction proves fatal as a group of zombies suddenly attacks. In the struggle, Miguel is bitten, and Baca, who rushes after Zoe, is also bitten on his shoulder. After catching up with Lily, Zoe devises a plan to eliminate Max once and for all. Luring him into a trap, she ultimately ambushes him, severing his head with a well-executed strike. Meanwhile, Baca, feeling the onset of infection, considers ending his own life. Just as he prepares to pull the trigger, Zoe intervenes, convincing him that the vaccine she developed may still save him. Following a series of emergency tests, an astonishing discovery is made. Baca's condition stabilizes, and he shows no signs of the grotesque transformations typical of the infection. With proof that her vaccine works, Zoe broadcasts an urgent message to the world, calling for survivors to seek refuge at the High Rock Emergency